It's a big ambition, and that's what we're here for. Hello, I'm Áine Lawler. I'm your moderator for today's event, which is the first of Ireland's part in playing its role in having its dialogues, the first of 4 national dialogues in the run-up to that UN summit in September. And thank you very much indeed to all our guests who'll be joining us today and to all of you joining us at home. And I want to say at the very start, the whole purpose of this is to have a conversation. We want to hear your views, and I'll be talking to you about how you can take part in just a moment. But let me give you an idea of what today's discussion is going to be all about. You'll hear in a moment from our chairperson, Sinéad McPhilips. She's the Assistant Secretary General at the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, and Sinéad is the convener of Ireland's Food System Dialogues. So she'll be talking to us about the work that's going on there. And we're delighted to have a keynote speaker today in Dr. Martin Frick, who is Deputy UN Secretary General, Special Envoy for that Food System Summit in 2021. So we can hear directly what the UN hopes can be achieved there. And then we're moving on to the discussion, and we'll be joined in our first panel by Tom Arnold, who chairs the Irish Agri-Food Strategy Committee. Also, many of you will know him, Professor Rogier Schutte from Wageningen University, and who used to, of course, work here in Teagasc. Dr. John Bell from the European Commission runs their Healthy Planet initiative, and also Caroline Keeling, who's the CEO of Keelings. And they're going to be talking to us about Ireland's 2030 food strategy and the difference in taking a food systems approach in that strategy. We'll hear from the panellists, and again, using Slido, I'll be talking to you about that in a moment. We'll be looking for you to take part there, and I'll be interested in bringing as many of your questions as we can to the panellists. And then we'll be moving on to our second panel, which is going to be dealing with that very difficult question of the trade-offs in particular between the environmental and economic sustainability challenge in the 2030 Agri-Food Strategy. And to talk about that, our panellists will be Laura Burke, who's the Director General of the EPA, Tim Cullinan, the President of the IFA, Pat Murphy, the President and Chief Executive of Kerry Group's Dairy and Agribusiness Divisions, and also Karen Ciesielski, the Irish Environment Network, and Karen is on the Environment Pillar on the Agri-Food 2030 Strategy Committee. So these are people who know an awful lot and can answer an awful lot of your questions, and certainly we're interested in you hearing from them and them hearing from you. Now, we're using Slido today, so please join the conversation online. And to do that, all you have to do is take out your smartphone if you haven't got it open already. You open your browser, go to slido.com and enter the event code, which is hashtag food systems, all one word, capital F, capital S, hashtag food systems. You should be in by now, so you can ask questions and vote for the ones you like. Now, we've started with a very quick poll to let us know, where are you? Where are you watching us from today? So that's going to be our first poll question. And I'll bring you more the answers on that during the break, so you can know about all the other people who are watching a little bit more and where they are. For more information for anyone who wants, it's on Ireland's food system and the UN Food System Summit this year. If you want to follow up on anything or know more about anything you hear today, you can visit the website gov.ie/food systems. And on that gov.ie/food systems, you can also register for all the upcoming dialogues, 3 more to come. And I'll be telling you more about those during the break between our first and our second panel. So we've a lot to come in the next 2 hours. I hope you can stay with us. The public consultation on the environmental assessment of the draft Agri-Food Strategy 2030 is now open until June the 15th. That's June the 15th. And again, if you want to have your say, go to gov.ie consultations, and that's where you can have your say. So as I say, a lot coming up in the next 2 hours. And to begin, I'll hand you over to our chairperson, Sinéad McPhilips. Sinéad.
Thank you very much, Áine. Hello, everyone. My name is Sinéad McPhilips. I'm Assistant Secretary General in the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, and I'm also the National Convener for Ireland's Food Systems Summit Dialogues, and I will be the chair for today's event, which, as Áine has said, is the first in a series of 4 dialogues over the next few weeks. In September this year, the United Nations Secretary General will host a Food Systems Summit to highlight the importance of food systems and their relevance to achieving the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, by 2030. As you've heard from the video, this is intended to be a very different type of UN summit. It is designed as a people's summit, with every country in the world asked to host dialogues like this one, to ensure that a wide range of voices and viewpoints are represented. The focus will be on identifying solutions and actions which can deliver real progress on healthier, more sustainable and equitable food systems. These national dialogues are a central part of Ireland's engagement with the summit and will provide an opportunity to hear from a broad range of stakeholders, both on Ireland's own food system and our engagement with the global system. The dialogues coincide with the launch for public consultation this week of Ireland's draft Agri-Food Strategy for 2030 and its draft environmental assessment. This new 10-year strategy has been developed using a food systems approach, making Ireland one of the first countries in the world to do so. A food systems approach takes account of the linkages between food and health and food and the environment. It considers sustainability in all its dimensions: economic, social and environmental, with innovation as a key driver. Many of the members of the 2030 Strategy Committee will be taking part in these dialogues, reflecting not only their own areas of expertise, but also their shared experience over the last 18 months of strategy formation, listening to each other's views, sharing experiences, and working together to agree a shared vision for the food system that we want to have in 10 years' time. Today's first dialogue introduces sustainable food systems and Ireland's 2030 strategy. We will first hear a keynote address, as Anya has mentioned, from Dr. Martin Frick, who is the Deputy Special Envoy for the UN Food Systems Summit. Martin will explain why sustainable food systems at local, regional and global levels are of such great importance to achieving a sustainable future for all people and the planet, as well as the outcomes that we can expect from the UN Summit in September. 2 panel discussions will follow. The first panel will include Tom Arnold, the chair of the 2030 Strategy Committee, and will look at the key elements of the draft strategy from both a national and an international perspective. The second panel will address the synergies and trade-offs between environmental and economic sustainability. Many of you will be aware that the environmental pillar withdrew from the 2030 Strategy Committee before the end of the strategy formation process. So I am particularly pleased that Karen Ciesielski from the environmental pillar will join this panel to give some initial reactions to the draft strategy. I hope that these dialogues will provide an opportunity for all stakeholders, from farmers and fishers right through to consumers, to learn more about Ireland's food system, to build our understanding about the big challenges and the big opportunities we face, and how we can work together to address them. It is important to say that we are not looking for consensus today. We hope to have an open discussion and to listen and learn from each other. I would like to acknowledge and thank the RDS for their support in hosting these national dialogues. Agriculture and rural development has always been a vital part of the work of the RDS, from its founding in 1731, 290 years ago. This work continues today in events such as this one, with a programme that focuses on the sustainable development of rural Ireland. As Anya has said, just a reminder that we are using the hashtag #foodsystems in any social media around the dialogues, so please feel free to use that. I will now hand the floor to Dr. Martin Frick for the keynote address. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary General. And it's difficult to start because you already met so many of the important points. I want to start by thanking Ireland, because really this summit would not exist without also Ireland's leadership asking early on for a food system summit. And as you said, there were food summits before, but having a summit that looks at food as the entire system is new. And this is, I think, one of the key messages here, that for so many years we have looked into food issues from a sort of ministers of agriculture perspective only. We know today, in the midst of a pandemic, that nutrition is the key element in making a population resilient against pandemics such as COVID. We know at the same time, with recent documentations from FAO, for example, that food as a system, not only agriculture, but cooling, transport, plastic wrapping, and very importantly, food waste, amount to more than 1/3 of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I spent many years in the climate process, and we have been looking into issues like car traffic and air travel and all of these issues, but we need to look into agriculture and food production as one of the key drivers. And it goes for two ways. Agriculture and food production, as the world sees it today, is all too often part of the problem. In many countries, it's a driver of deforestation. It's a driver of ecosystems, loss of biodiversity, consumes too much water, and emits too much greenhouse gas emissions. But at the same time, solutions are at hand. We can turn agriculture, we can turn food systems into a force of ecosystems restoration, into a carbon sink. And that is something, and let me say that at the outset, which needs innovation, as was said, and also an open mind. I found it remarkable, Assistant Secretary General, what you said, that you don't expect a consensus from this conversation. And having engaged with all the countries of the UN membership, civil society, producer organizations, we know how difficult these conversations can be. And what we are offering is an honest conversation using the platform of the UN Food Systems Summit and bringing your issues all the way up to world leaders. The summit has been phrased, and Dr. Kalibata, my boss, just said it in the video, as a people summit and as an action summit. And these are not buzzwords, because in 25 years I have worked as a diplomat. I haven't seen a summit which has such an inclusive format. Let me give you 3 examples. Number 1, the thinking machine of this summit is 5 action tracks: on access to safe and nutritious food for all, on shift to healthy and sustainable consumption, on nature positive production, on livelihoods, and on resilience. In a normal UN process, you would have these action tracks co-led by 2 ambassadors or by ministers. Here, we took actors from civil society and put the experts in charge. We have in action track 1, for example, Ireland participating in all 3 areas, on eliminating hunger, on working on better nutrition, and so on. But it's not only countries who are there and whom we are listening to. We have representatives of indigenous, smallholder farmers, academia, civil society, business associations, because we want to hear from everybody. And that is what this summit is going to do. Come September, the Secretary General will issue a statement of action, and that will duly reflect what we have been hearing in this process. Let me come to the second bit, where we are today. We have invited the countries of this world to host national level food system summit dialogues. You are right now participating in one. As of today, we have 103 countries who have nominated national conveners, which is the first step of this process. We have had 66 of these dialogues so far. And again, these are not easy conversations, but they are necessary ones, because they bring together the ministers and the ministries of agriculture, but also health, youth, infrastructure, environment, planning, all the different ministries that need to be at the table, because food systems are so central to our human well-being, to jobs, to our environment, and ultimately really to stay within planetary boundaries. And that is a key concern these days, because the scientists, and I have been working with IPCC for many years, have really been on the conservative sides. Many of the things that we see today happening were projected to be a problem in 2030 or in 2040. And what's frightening is that in some instances, we are coming close to what scientists call tipping points. And that basically means an irreversible loss of ecosystems, irreversible. We are going over the cliff and we cannot undo that. So we must avoid that, but we must not be blind to people, to agriculture as being the biggest employer there is, and so many livelihoods depending on it. There are ways out. There's discussion around quality, reduction of food waste, looking into the production methods. And all of that requires really an all of society process, as this one is just kicking off today. I would be remiss if I wouldn't thank Ireland also for the financial contribution, because you have been believing from the outset in the necessity of such a summit and have also contributed financially to making this summit a success. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you today and to hear from Ireland when we will be at the head of state level in September and bringing the experiences of the entire planet together. This is not going to happen overnight, but heads of states and heads of government will present their 2030 pathways, the 9 harvests we have before we are at 2030, what we can do really to eliminate hunger, as we promised it in SDG 2, to work to eliminate poverty, to stay within the planetary boundaries, be it fish stocks, be it land resources, and to finally come to grips with climate change. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention and would give back to the moderator. Thank you very much indeed.
And Dr. Frick, thank you, because you certainly set out the challenge that we face.